Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. You know something? It still blows my mind how much the business landscape and indeed our own lives have changed in the last 2 years, especially on the topic of how we communicate and collaborate with each other and those huge list of tools that we all rely on. Because the recent pandemic response elevated the importance of simplified administration of these UCC platforms like Teams and also to senior management who are navigating a highly complex hybrid working environment with increasing distributed workforces. So today, I wanted to explore the fragmentation of technology in that unified communications and collaboration space and learn more about how actually it's leading to a disunification of communications, meaning that the challenge for businesses now is to try and reunify and automate management and user administration and freeing up those admin specialists to do the work that they need to do and employees to work, collaborate and innovate. That's the dream place that we need to get to. So I've invited my new friend, Eric Olson, Kurmi's VP of Sales in Americas, onto the podcast. And he's going to share his story, some observations, and also how they're helping businesses with their technology overcome some of these challenges that I've just talked about. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York, where Eric Olson is waiting to speak with us. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Eric. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And Neil, certainly really excited to be here. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and to your audience today. So my name is Eric Olson. I am the Vice President of Sales for Kurmi Software here in the Americas. We'll get a little bit probably more into who Kurmi is and what we do, but I'm currently responsible for all of the Americas from a sales perspective as a growing organization. Most of your listeners will be aware of the fact that I wear multiple hats in that capacity, whether it be sales or working with marketing or working with business development and operations, all of those things. I think I touch on a daily basis, either one way or the other. So it's certainly not something that lacks for excitement.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to digging a little bit deeper on everything Kurmi in a few moments. But before we do, I want to know how you got here. So what is your origin story? Where did your passion for tech come from? What lit the spark and what put you on this path you're on?
Yeah, sure. So, I actually I went to college for political science, which I think I used for about 3 minutes after college was over, like a lot of people with their degrees. I actually started down on Wall Street. I worked in the financial services sector for about 8 years, doing various things. It was interesting because I was down there really during the original tech boom. So the mid to late 90s, before companies like Amazon really kind of existed or anyone knew about them. Google was not even something I think was a thought. Companies like Microsoft and Netscape, et cetera. So from a finance side of things, I was able to see those companies and watch their growth rate, and it was incredible when you compared them to kind of the traditional old blue chip type of companies, even technology like an IBM. But you look at companies like Coca-Cola and GE and these large scale global organizations, had been the staple of the US and even the global economy for so long. So because of that, I really was excited about the technology piece of things. And I think I naturally gravitated towards it over time. And I ended up, early 2000s moving to take a kind of a sales leadership position in a small collaboration technology company. And it was interesting because it was my first real direct interaction. I worked for a company called Intercall, which now is in its probably fourth or fifth iteration in a different name since that time. But it was the first time that I really started to see how powerful technology could be from a collaboration standpoint. What I mean by that is giving people the ability to collaborate, to get together and join forces really remotely from different parts of the country, different parts of the globe, and just how powerful and how effective that really was in allowing people not only to communicate, but also share ideas and drive their business forward. So, that kind of morphed into what ultimately became the unified communication space. And, I'm certainly dating myself, but when I look at, where I've been over the last, 10, 15 years, it really has been, much of it's been focused on the unified communication space. And there's obviously various iterations of that, whether it be UC or UCAS, and all the other things that kind of go into that. But certainly the technology piece of it was always something that was super exciting to me. And it's been a great ride watching as it's continued to change over the years.
It really has been an incredibly cool ride for you. I'm just listening to you speak there, from political science, Wall Street, the dot-com boom, sales leadership, unified comms. And it was all those points that put you on the path for where you are now at Kurmi Software, which I believe offers a flexible automation platform. But for people hearing about you for the very first time, can you just introduce the listeners to your technology and the kind of problems that you're solving with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that really brought me to Kurmi was, I had all this experience in unified communication space. And, one of the problems that I've seen, or it's just maybe the challenge is a better word, that I've seen consistently is enterprise organizations struggling with how to deliver the right tools from a technology standpoint to their end users and to their customers, while also being able to manage those effectively and efficiently. So, whenever you're looking to, make a move within your career or looking for a new challenge, for me, one of the things I always look at is does this organization solve a problem? And, Kurmi fits that definition really well. In my opinion, to your point, we are a software automation platform. We've been around for about 13 years. We are very much global in the way that we deliver our solution, but also the way that we are structured and organized into 3 different regions of the world, being the Americas, Europe, or EMEA, and Asia Pacific. So the big problem for me that we're seeing in the market, and that I think Kurmi really solves, is you have this multiple technology environment with different providers, whether it be service providers, whether it be technology providers, a combination of them all together. The challenge isn't finding good technology. The challenge is finding the ability to deliver the best technology or best of breed technology across the enterprise, and still being able to manage that and deliver that along with governance in an efficient manner. And I think when you look at Kurmi, one of the things that we bring to the table and that our customers tell us is really valuable from utilizing our software is managing, whether it be Cisco telephony environment, with Microsoft Teams for collaboration, with maybe an acquisition that brought on a Avaya contact center, right? And I'm just using 3 names of technologies that we happen to support, along with many others. That's a really challenging environment for an IT organization to be able to support. So those technologies exist; they're inside of your environment today. You need to be able to support them. How do you do that efficiently, and how do you do that effectively? And that's where Kurmi really comes in and allows our customers to manage all of that from one single pane of glass.
Love that. And a few moments ago, you were telling me all the changes you've seen throughout your career, from that dot-com boom to where we are now. And I suspect that you've seen so much change in the last 2 years alone. That pace of change is phenomenal. And the pandemic response elevated the importance of simplified administration of UCC platforms like Teams, for example, to senior management who are suddenly navigating a highly complex hybrid working environment with an increasingly distributed workforce. But I'm curious, what are the biggest observations you've seen in the last 2 years?
Yeah, and it's a great point you bring up, Neil, because it's technology in general has a tendency to change rapidly.
Yeah.
But when you look at the effect of the pandemic, particularly how it has just increased the rapidity of hybrid work. And I also, I think it's also we're at a point where everyone's starting to recognize that not only are we in this hybrid, work at home environment, but it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's only going to become more and more of the norm, and we're starting to see that clearly already. So that again creates a significant challenge for the C-level IT executive, for the business overall. And how do we continue to support our end users, our customers, in what is a super complex, flexible hybrid environment, right? Because it is essential that our customers support that. It is essential that we're allowing our customers to utilize best of breed technology to support that entire environment and that ecosystem. But you're seeing just a continued move towards distributed workforces that work from home, as I mentioned before, or work from anywhere. And UC applications, which really were built to support that, and they do a wonderful job from a technology standpoint, it still creates that problem, or it really does highlight that critical need for a much more responsive, agile, and overall simplified administration of the different platforms.
Completely agree with you. And I think over the last couple of years, everyone's got their own favorite way of working, whether it be Zoom, Teams, Blue Jeans, WebEx, GoToMeeting, and it's such a long list. So I'm curious, have you seen a fragmentation of technology in that UCC space? And has it actually led to a dysfunction of communications or disunification of communications?
100%, Neil. And disunification is probably the best word to describe it. It's interesting because I mentioned before, I've been in the UC space for longer than I like to admit sometimes. Right. Let's just say I had a lot more hair when UC started, and the hair that I do have left was a lot darker than it is now. So, but no, so it's interesting when you look at UC and what it was built for. It was really this promise of, okay, and again, whether it was Cisco or Microsoft or Avaya, none of that kind of matters when you look at what the promise was, which is, okay, we're going to have this one unified communication stack that's going to support all of your needs, right? Whether it be telephony or web and video and audio conferencing, right? Which we consider collaboration, contact center, right? There's all these different components of what unified communications, or I should say what makes up unified communications traditionally. And what we did see a lot of that come together, and we saw really great technology being developed by, the names that I just mentioned, and then many others. Nobody's really ever been able to solve the problem of it's really just one technology, right? And it's interesting because when you look at the pandemic and what's happened over the last 2 years, we're seeing, companies, for example, right now, right? You and I are using Zoom.
Yeah. 5
years ago, Zoom was this kind of cute little company that was going to compete against WebEx, right? And you had Citrix and LogMeIn and some other ones, et cetera. They've done a phenomenal job, Zoom, as an organization. I'm certainly not taking anything away from them, right? Amazing growth story, great technology, but nobody could argue that they have been a huge beneficiary of the hybrid workplace and obviously the changing times because of the pandemic and the effect it's had. This is now a multi-billion-dollar. It's incredible. Same thing with even like a Microsoft Teams. Microsoft obviously being a massive organization who owns 80% plus of desktops globally. Even their Teams application a few years ago was, this is cool. Maybe at one point it was Skype for Business, and before that it was something else. And then we're gonna, but Teams, when you look at its penetration into the market, the number of users on a daily basis that are inside the product, that are using the product from a technology standpoint, it really, it's incredible. I haven't seen anything like it in in 15 years in the UC space. But what it does is all of those different technologies, because they're so good, and some of them are really great at one thing, but maybe not as strong as another. When you combine that with the fact that you have, most organizations already have significant investment in different technologies inside of their own environment, that kind of promise of unified communication has gone away. So from a technology standpoint, it doesn't really exist. But from a management standpoint and from the ability to deliver those tools, to implement them, to create adoption, that does exist. And that's through Kurmi, right? So it's our software, it's our platform that is really, for lack of a better term, it's re-unifying unified communications from the enterprise standpoint.
Yeah, there's so many stats that blew my mind during the pandemic. You mentioned Zoom there. I mean, before the pandemic, a lot of people were avoiding video conferencing at all costs. Yeah. And I think in 5 months, the Zoom market cap reached 150 billion, which at the time was more than 15 of the world's largest airlines put together. It's just insane. Yeah. But since then, of course, so much has changed and there's a lot of challenges to overcome. So how are you helping to overcome a lot of these challenges with Kurmi software?
Yeah, and again, there's a lot of them, right? And we're helping our customers every single day. And at Kurmi, we believe that regardless of the change, the confusion, the complexity, and the underlying architecture, whether it's prem or cloud or hybrid, convergence of your CRM, contact center, telephony infrastructure, and then proliferation of endpoint collaboration apps, your employees, your teams, your customers, everyone needs to communicate. They need to communicate, they need to collaborate, and they need to stay connected wherever they are. So for us, right, we're, from a Kurmi standpoint, we're ready to meet that challenge. And more importantly, we're ready to, and we're doing it today, we're allowing our customers to meet that challenge with our software and our platform, right? I mentioned before kind of that reunification of unified communications, right? For us, we're agnostic towards the technology, right? So we support multiple platforms. I mentioned before, obviously, Cisco and Microsoft and Avaya and Alcatel-Lucent for, a lot of our customers in Europe and Asia Pac. And, again, the thing for us and what our customers look to us for is not only our ability to support them and their technology today, but also to support what's going to come in the future, right? So we're in the process of building connectors and allowing our customers to manage other technologies, whether it's Zoom or new contact center applications, et cetera. We're trying to deliver a solution that not only works today, but also allows our customers, our service provider customers, as well as our enterprise customers to really future-proof their technology administration.
It's incredibly cool what you're doing here. And just to bring to life for everything that we've talked about, do you have any use cases of companies you work with and clients you serve? You don't have to name any names, but just to help listeners understand how it could work in their world and how you can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like we're platform agnostic when it comes to technologies, right? We're certainly industry agnostic. And when you look at our customer base, it's pretty spread out, not only geographically, but also in the different verticals that they cover, whether it be healthcare or finance or energy, technology, right? They all can certainly benefit from automation. And that's obviously where Kurmi comes in. I mean, I can give you multiple examples. Well, I'll give you, without mentioning the name, we have a customer, global enterprise, just under 100,000 employees. Just like any company of that size, they've grown organically, but also through acquisition. And when that happens, right, over the course of 5, 10 plus years, you are naturally going to acquire different technologies. You also acquire different people that have different skill sets. And, one of the big challenges for this organization was we have 4 different telecom technologies that we need to manage. We have nine different collaboration technologies. And while we would love to, as an organization, bring all of that under one single technologies, it's not feasible. First of all, not one technology can deliver what all of our different working and team groups want to or need to utilize. But also, again, there's a skill set factor of it. There's a political factor of that as well. So their challenge was, we want to consolidate that technology, which they've done, right? And they've gotten down really to, for the most part, one telecom infrastructure. We've actually helped them doing that, right? They've utilized our software to handle some of the migration. We're not a migration tool, but we have some migration capabilities that are built into our platform natively. But because we have experience in it, we have expertise in these multiple technologies, we were able to help with them from best practices and a technology standpoint. So we helped them consolidate down essentially to one telephony infrastructure. And they also were able to consolidate down into a smaller number of collaboration providers. So they're utilizing Kurmi not only to help implement those changes, but now they're able to support all of those technologies from one single pane of glass, which creates massive efficiencies. So, we just, we're about to come out with a study. I'm not sure when it's going to be released, but it'll be shortly, where we surveyed a bunch of large scale enterprises globally. And I'll back these numbers up, by the way, just with my own real life experience. But on the average, when somebody needs to go into, their technology from an administrative standpoint and make a change, whether it's add a user or a simple, MACD, somebody makes a move, changes a name, et cetera, it can take them up on the average about 30 minutes to do that. And that's not necessarily even doing it correct every single time. And that's, again, you have to go into your telephony infrastructure, you have to make a change, then you have to go into your user portal for your collaboration piece, then your user portal for your contact center, right? So that's 15, 20, 30 minutes at a clip. You have 100,000 people in an organization, you're doing 15, 20, 30 of those a day. That time adds up and it's incredibly costly. You can do that same exact MACD, that same exact change utilizing Kurmi, managing all of your infrastructure in about 45 seconds. So when you start adding that up, right, that not only saves you a lot of time, but that time being saved translates into real dollars and real savings in your customer's pocket. So I think that's a good example of how we're helping our customers today.
And I think we should also highlight the burden that IT teams have got now, because there's an increase of cyber attacks on inactive accounts and workers working remotely on public Wi-Fi, etc. So I'm curious, do you think trends like the Great Resignation and hybrid working have created greater pressures for admin teams? And if so, how can automation further help alleviate that burden?
Yeah, it's a great point. And the answer is yes to all of that, right? So, when you look at the things like and you use the term Great Resignation, the pandemic response. So huge numbers of people that had to be provisioned on tools to be able to work remotely without a decline or an expected decline in their productivity. And again, that creates all the challenges that we've been talking about for the last, 15 or 20 minutes or so. And it's certainly heightened that. But from a security standpoint, from an overall governance standpoint, you have to still be able to deliver the technology, but also be able to manage it, do it inside of a secure environment. That creates massive challenges, right? That scale, just as your workforce or just as the number of people utilizing this technology scales. So I mentioned before, that time that it takes from a resource standpoint, and generally these are, highly skilled people that our customers have managing what are fairly mundane things to do. They're just time consuming. So the ability to not only reduce their time, but also be able to reprioritize those individuals towards things that are actually driving the business forward as opposed to just kind of everyday automation also has, for some pretty significant financial impact to the organization. And there are other macro trends which are, also having an impact on admin teams, such as the cloud adoption, consolidation. I mentioned before an example of a customer that's grown significantly through acquisition, and then obviously dealing with all those legacy solutions within the IT environment, such as Skype for Business, which now is MS Teams, such as older versions of different technologies. All of those things are just increasing the need for that automation while still being able to provide a really high level of productivity to your end users.
We have talked a lot about the number of challenges and what we've been through over the last 2 years, but the world is opening back up. There's a lot to be excited about. But what excites you about the future?
Personally, I am a really big supporter of the hybrid working environment. I think that people in general are much more efficient. They're certainly happier. Your quality of life in most cases is going to be significantly higher. People are more productive. I think they're happier, right? Their work-life balance changes. All of those things I look at as all super, super positive. So that to me is really exciting. When I look at it from Kurmi's point of view, that also creates many more opportunities for us to help our customers. I also like, or I should say, when I look at what our customers are being challenged with today, some of the things that are most exciting to me are not what's in front of them, but what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know, right? Like I mentioned before, nobody could have predicted, except maybe the founder of Zoom, right? Nobody could have predicted 5 years ago that Zoom was going to have $150 billion market valuation, right? So that was this technology that kind of, came out of nowhere and now is ubiquitous, right? I mean, again, we're using it today. People are using it in their personal lives, which is bleeding into their business lives. So all of those things are really exciting. And I'm excited for being able to see what's around that next corner from a technology standpoint and what we're going to be, whether it's AI or virtual, right? What are the things that we're going to be utilizing and having to manage and increase productivity 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now? Those are the things that help get me up in the morning that I'm passionate about.
Excellent. Love that. And we began the podcast talking about your origin story, the amazing journey you've been on. But as we come full circle, I'm now going to ask if there was a song, piece of music, movie, or book that has inspired, helped you in your career, or just accompanied you in your career. Is there a choice and a story behind it that will leave the listeners on an inspirational note today?
Sure. Well, I'm not gonna torture you all with my music choices. I already do that to my teenagers. When they're a little slow doing the dishes, I throw them in the car and make them listen to my music, right? So that's a good punishment. But when I look at where we are today, and when I even think about what we've been talking about, Neil, for the past 20 minutes or so, the overall theme I think is change. And how do you deal with that? And, there's a lot of great books out there, and I'm certainly no philosopher, but, throughout my career, even throughout my life, I think one of the things that is such a key point in how well you adapt with changes is leadership.
Yeah. So,
that's what inspires me a lot. And when I think about leadership, a book that comes to mind for me it's by one of the great American presidential historians, Doris Kearns Goodwin, who's written, multiple just fantastic books. She wrote a book by the name of Team of Rivals, which is about Abraham Lincoln. And the preface of the book is which before I read this, I didn't really understand fully, and I'm a little bit of a history buff, but I didn't really understand fully just how far he had gone in doing this. But the preface of the book is when he was elected, I should say, he surrounded himself inside of his own cabinet with the folks that were his biggest political rivals and who he had fought against, politically, had argued against, had competed against, and he brought them into the most inner circles. And, that was a time that clearly was, the most tumultuous in our country's history. And obviously being Lincoln and being a US president, this, you could look at this as being, very US oriented, but I think the lessons are global, right? And I think anybody could use them. But for someone to have the courage and the confidence to surround themselves with people who, natively disagreed with, in almost every area politically, and then to lead them while taking their advice when necessary, and then make those really difficult decisions, it to me is incredible, but it's also inspiring. And, when you look at those leadership skills, again, I use the word courage. I use the word confident because I think they're both equally applicable, and then, do what obviously he did, which is, lead the United States through the most tumultuous time, the most changing, the most challenging time in our country's history, I think is incredibly inspirational. And there are some tremendous lessons that I think anybody can learn from reading it. So yeah, Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin, just one of my favorites.
Awesome. What a great choice. And before I let you go, for anyone listening that want to find out more information about Kurmi software, contact your team, check out a few videos or the kind of work that you're doing, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, I think, just go to our website. So it's www.kurmi-software.com for those folks that are listening in America. That's Kurmi-software. But yeah, we can, there's obviously lots of information there and ways to get in contact with us.
I love chatting with you about the fragmentation of technology in the UCC space, how it's leading to this disunification of communications, but how you're overcoming those challenges, and all that washed down with a great book and your life story. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that with me today.
Been a real pleasure, Neil. Thanks so much.
What an awesome guy. And Eric, if you're listening back to this episode, the next time I'm in New York City, I will meet you at the White Horse Tavern in New York, where we'll talk about life, the universe, and everything. How does that sound? And for everyone else, I'd love today's conversation. And for me, it was a real timely reminder of those multitude of different platforms like Microsoft Teams, Google, Cisco, and an even bigger list of collaboration tools that organizations rely on to navigate this ever-changing landscape. And also about how things such as the Great Resignation and an increase in hybrid working have created greater pressures for admin teams. So maybe automation can alleviate much of the burden. I say can, it is with Kurmi software today. But I'd love to know more about your experiences, your observations over the last 2 years. And as always, my door is always open to each and every one of you. LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk if you want to work with me. And my email address is techblogwriter@outlook.com. Now, I did mention a moment ago that if I do make it to New York this year, I do hope to meet Eric at the White Horse Tavern. And for anybody listening, if you listen to the show in New York, give me a shout. Maybe we can all meet up in the White Horse Tavern. I will add you to the list. But that's it for today's episode. I hope you will all join me again tomorrow, wherever you're listening in the world. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.